Well, welcome to another edition of What's So Funny, the show that probes the brains, the minds, the psyches, and the brains of the people who make the funny. Tonight on the show, a little special thing for you. An hour-long chat with Canadian stand-up Derek Edwards, who's doing a big tour of our area, our province, and all out and about in the next little while. And Guy had a nice little chat with him, and we're going to hear that tonight in just a moment.
Derek, welcome to town. You're here early.
I am here early to go through the preamble of shameless self-promotion.
And this is a part of that.
Well, not with yourself. This is more like, hey, two buddies chatting, but often there's an element of phoniness to it, just a tiny bit.
Now, you were on Urban Rush today, weren't you?
Yes.
We'll see that all week.
Ad nauseum. They gave me the list. There's 4 showings today. So I don't know how big their roster of shows is, but it's not mammoth. You know what, Mike and Fiona?
Yes.
It was hard to take my eyes off Fiona. She has a certain something about her.
She does.
She has a certain definite charm, and of course the long blonde hair to top everything off. But Mike is very, he's in there quick. He's a sharp guy, and it's his show, and he's in control, but geez, he was generous to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, were you trying to do material, do jokes?
No.
And that he would step on?
No, they
come
asked
in there
me
and
questions.
give you the joke before you get to it?
No, he wasn't. No, it was nothing like that.
All right.
That can't happen if you're doing an early morning, where I thrive, by the way, a radio show where there's more than 2 guys. If there's 3 guys in the booth, I mean, mostly they can't get a word in edgewise anyway.
Right.
Why they would possibly even arrange for me to be there as this 4th wheel. I guess it would sound like it'd make it more stable of a vehicle, but it doesn't work out that way. Everybody's leaping in, and they're so revved up on coffees because they've been up since 4 in the morning. I get up 5 minutes before I got to get in the cab. But no, they were very nice there, and basically my fear of doing these things is way worse when you actually do them.
Just the anticipation.
Yeah, just so I'm going to step on my foot again. I'm going to say something.
Again? Have you have a bad experience?
Yeah, I've had a number. I can't put, a quantifiable notion as to where they went wrong. Just something messed up. And sometimes there's a bit of a macho energy about some, and certainly not the larger percentage, but some of the radio personalities. It's their gig, and they want in. They want to be part of everything, and they're not really keen on listening.
Now, I think I've interviewed you a few times, and around 2003, I was just looking last night. Was that when you really started doing a lot of press? Or had you always done it? I mean, you just sort of ramped up in the last few years with your cross-country tours.
With the cross-country tours, yeah. That's where really it all began. I mean, I started first time doing theater, working with Rick Mercer and this heavy-hitting group of hilarious guys. From some, like John Maloney was from England. They brought up a couple of American guys. Do you know Joey Elias?
Yeah.
So, just
He's
hugely.
Canadian, though.
Yeah, Canadian out of Montreal. Just enormously funny folks. And that's the first time I was ever asked if I wanted to do interviews. And with all due humility, I turned them down every time.
When was this?
I think probably 2003.
Okay,
right around there.
right around there. And you turned them down.
Yeah.
Somehow you didn't turn me down.
Well, we got history. I was not revved up to go and promote a show that had Rick Mercer on it. What words could I say that are going to lure people into a show with Rick Mercer on it? Maybe Rick should be out there talking.
And that's no knock on Rick Mercer you're saying here.
No,
that's just that it should be Rick.
Nothing but accolades to Rick.
Yeah.
No, he's the one bringing them out. Invariably, there was a truck with all the equipment. It was that well organized. These guys at the JFL always work top drawer.
Right.
And his picture on the side of the truck was the size of my house. And they're going to interview some extra guys that are also on the show? No, but he did a lion's share of that work, and Joey was really good at it too, because he's so naturally good with improvisation anyway.
Yeah. He does a radio show too, doesn't he?
I think he does, out in Montreal.
Yeah.
Talking comedy.
Have any of now you're talking about yourself being trepidatious with the interviews. Any interviews that they're just completely bad from the other end, from the interviewers? I mean, you must get tons of questions that you've answered a million times, but some just stand out as being particularly bad, whether it's from a tiny little paper somewhere or radio or TV? Or are they all about the same?
There's nothing stunningly bad, no. Just sometimes you'll get somebody who goes, okay, you're in comedy, be funny, nah. And I don't really have that kind of material that lends itself to the one-liner format. The gift of being able to speak in sound bites.
Right.
That's something I haven't cultivated. So I'm trying to work more on that so I will be able to deal with these very rude and obnoxious people.
Do you mean you're sitting there writing like one-liners?
No, you can't. No, it's not about
Or
working into
working
your
on-
act. Trying to, when you're asked a question, to reply in some pre-thought of kind of bing, ba, bang, ba, boom, bang. So they know when to, counter-respond.
But you're a naturally funny guy. You don't need to have anything prepared.
That's very kind. And
No, I find that because I interview a lot of comedians, and some are, pretty dull when you're just talking to them.
yeah, okay. Well, that surprises me because I've, like I say, I've been avoiding the interview scenario for a long time. But if it's a friendly environment, that's the key. If it's a friendly environment and I'm comfortable, like anyone, every dog has his day. You're going to have some good moments, here and there, a line here or there. And so that's the best I hope for. When they asked me, would you like us to lead into your material? Oh, my God, no. I mean, even on the Seinfeld show, and that was so well written, when Jerry's doing a joke from his act that's actually on the show, I don't mean when he's on stage on the show.
Yeah.
But if you look back at it, you can always tell that, that's from his act. Even if you've never seen it, you go, obviously, that is so contrived. So I try and avoid that where it's just painfully obvious that it's been set up.
So I sense some insecurity. Now, you've been in this business a long time. Are you comfortable on stage? Do you get nervous going on stage still?
Well, let us not undervalue insecurity. I find that it's those people that look back at their conduct a little while ago and think it was aces, regardless. They don't even reconsider that, oh, man, maybe I should have thought about that person's feelings before I went leaping in. Like people without insecurities, that's your definition of asshole right there. Everything they do is right, and those are the biggest jerks you'll ever meet. Now, I'm not separating myself from that entirely, but yeah, sure, I have my anxiousness and insecurities like anybody.
You're everyone's favorite comic.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Do you sense that, or is there a part of you that still is wondering about your place in the hierarchy? I mean, you gotta realize you're a popular guy.
I'm so out of the loop now. I don't know where I'm at. You just go. You're punctual. You show up. You try like hell to make this different than the last show, and that hopefully you get some good momentum and some moments where people just somehow or other hurt themselves laughing, and that's the dream. That's the goal. So. Where I don't know where I'm at in the long run, but I know there's a lot of guys that I find much funnier than I. Norm Macdonald's touring through Toronto, and it kills me I can't be there to watch this guy.
He was here not too long ago.
Did you go see him?
Yeah.
And?
Hilarious.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
There is a masterful guy with the English language, and just God-given timing.
Did you start out with him?
He was an established headliner. And keep this in mind, 6 months after he'd begun. And he'd rolled along with headlining. By the time I was getting my chops down, he was on the verge of doing his first show, which was Pat Sajak. That was his first...
Writing gig?
No, just doing...
doing a stand-up.
Remember Sajak had the... he had a talk show. So he went on there, and Sajak just crippled up laughing. He was just done. And I would like to say... It's the only, I think it was Letterman's favorite comic.
Norm was.
Yeah, Norm. Yeah. So after Norm's act was done, Dave came back on after commercial break and did a callback to Norm's last punchline. Never done before. Yeah, so guys like that are out there. Geez, Panette's hilarious. And I look at some of the old school guys. Dangerfield still cracks me up. All these guys you can work in one liner. Stuart Francis?
One of my favorite one-liner guys.
There you have it. Yeah. And that's the hardest thing. It's like a single-panel cartoon. Yeah. Gary Larson. I mean, it's brilliant to get that much funny in that tiny little bit of space.
Stuart Francis is also a great example of a guy who's just naturally hilarious, even off stage.
Oh, man, yeah. I've been golfing with him. He's just gifted funny. He is. I don't know where it comes from. I wish I had a pipeline into it.
So, talking about when you started, it was around Toronto, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, in the heart and soul. You remember Yorkville back when it's more of a hippie place to be? Yorkville's kind of a neighborhood in Toronto. It's a little north of Yonge and Bloor and off to the side. And it's become very pretentious since it was a comedy mecca. But that's where I started, smoke-filled room.
Yeah.
Back in the day when there were smoke-filled rooms.
Well, there is right now.
Where?
I mean, right here where we're sitting.
Oh, yeah. That's right. You got to build your own. That's the trouble.
The station manager's listening. We're not in studio. We're remote from North Vancouver, where Derek is. Just got in town yesterday. We should mention your tour will be at the Centennial Theatre on Friday, April 24th. Here in North Vancouver, then again May 2nd in Richmond, and a ton of dates in between, right?
Yeah, there's just a literal ton of dates in between.
Like every night.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not something I'm that accustomed to. But when we did the Prairies, which is my most recent tour prior to this, there was gaps of time where I would be doing a little press here and there, or just shaking the cobwebs off. You got to do your laundry at some point. You need a few days off, but that's not the plan. It wasn't in the tour manager's cards this time through. So, yeah, it's a lot more intense.
So, but you got a couple of days here in Vancouver.
I had yesterday evening, once I got back from the Swin Ferry, and so I killed that time. And then there's tomorrow in Kamloops. I get there in the afternoon. I get to wander around, read the paper, and try and work up some local stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just in that short of time. Is it for Kamloops specific? And then you'll move on to like
that's my day off. Is just because nobody really who wants to work Saturday night. Come on. So I got Saturday night off, and revving up for a Sabbath show in Kamloops later on.
Back to when you started in Toronto, and you mentioned Norm Macdonald was ahead of you. Yeah, because you were like in the late 20s, right, when you started?
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of guys start in their early 20s, I guess.
Early 20s, and maybe you'd know Lawrence Morgenstern.
Yeah, funny guy.
A hilarious guy. He started, he used to have fans in high school. He was so funny. And he started, when he was 18 and a half or something.
Oh, really?
But I found it benefited me to no end to have had, a pile of jobs and a little bit of world experience before I tried my hand at the trade of comedy, just to have something to draw from for comparison purposes.
Right.
So you're not, so far out of the realm of people's understanding that you come off just out there. I was kind of one of the crew.
Right.
I could have easily been sitting in the crowd and much more comfortable doing it.
It's interesting. We talk about Lawrence Morgenstern and Norm Macdonald and yourself, three of you, and I think three distinct voices, not only points of view, but the rhythm of your voice, the sounds of your voice. A skilled impressionist could do any one of you. Don't you think?
Really?
There's something to, I haven't put my finger on it yet, but the quality of a stand-up comic's voice really helps it or hurts it, apart from the material even. Do you ever notice that?
Who does it good, me, and this is weird to say even, but John Wayne.
Does he?
Does it dead on me. Although I don't hear it as well because nobody recognizes their own voice, but the cadence and
Really?
it's just spooky. And it just, it is a compliment in a way, somebody takes the time to nail that down. There's certain people out there that I guess they're easy to impersonate. I always think of Clint Eastwood and.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned one of your favorites, Rodney Dangerfield, right? He's got a distinct voice. I guess we all have distinct voices, but you guys have a funny way of talking, and this is a good thing. Is this something you've ever thought of?
I've never given it a great deal of thought. This is just the type of reason why I haven't done interviews before, because they always throw a curve at me. I got nowhere to go.
Let's think about your favorite comics, right? Their voices, just the voices themselves, are inherently humorous.
I guess that's true. I guess.
Mike Wilmot,
Oh, Mikey. Well, why didn't I mention Mikey?
Yeah.
I guess because he's a buddy. I don't have to show off his accolades like he's done. Yeah. He's made his bones out in Europe and done some kind of magic out, and he's in Australia now. He won the award out there for their little last festival in Melbourne, and gets a free ticket to go to Australia for their month-long fest.
Nice.
Anyway, he's very, very, imitatable voice.
Yeah.
Just there's I guess there's something to be said to the lilt. Like people say I sound like a newfie, or at least East Coast. But that's my gal's from there.
Right.
So I think maybe I've picked up a little bit of her.
Really? You didn't sound like this as a youngster?
I don't know.
Oh.
I mean, I wish I could recall exactly what I sounded like as a child for you. But
Could you do that?
there's my sketchy memory coming into play.
Or when you were working as a forklift operator or whatever you were?
I was for a while.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Absolutely frightening job. I had people's lives I could have ended carrying huge chunks of rail through this rail yard. Yeah.
yeah. Or your own life, for that matter, could have ended.
No, I was totally safe up there. Like it was a speed swing. These are huge. They're like a grader that scrapes snow off the road. Of course, you wouldn't know what that looks like here, would you? Anyway, they're very tall. And this sun beating through, you're safe as hell. But it's the poor guys underneath. That was the tensest job I ever had. I guess comedy's pretty easy going in comparison.
We're talking with Derek Edwards. He's in town for a cross-country tour, well, the BC portion of it anyway. He'll be at Centennial Theatre in North Van on Friday, April 24th. And the show's What's So Funny? I'm Guy McPherson on CFRO 102.7 FM or podcast. Now, so when you started late 20s after having regular jobs, was it a lifelong dream to get on stage, or was it just it happened later in life where you said, no, I want to get on stage? Like, and if it was a lifelong dream, why didn't you do it when you were 18 or 20?
It took a while to rev up the nerve, first of all, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Have you ever done stage stuff, doing some MC stuff because you're, cachet here in the biz?
Once or twice.
Yeah? When you're into unfamiliar waters, don't you find it a little bit frightening?
Well, yeah, definitely. And I guess that's where you were because you hadn't done it yet. You're right. Yeah.
Maybe, so you wonder why I was treading water before I, got back up on a diving board.
Yeah.
You wonder?
Yeah.
Well, that's just a matter of risk-reward, maybe, possibly. Maybe there was a consideration there, but I guess it just took a while for me to move to Toronto, get my roots down.
From Timmins?
Yeah. So I wasn't really in a position. I mean, you really have to be in the city to follow up. I mean, if you just do one show, and you're going to be your first time, it's very unlikely you're going to have fond memories of it. So you got to be able to follow it up. So and try it again and maybe get your chops down a little. So it wasn't for a while. I guess maybe I was 27 and a bit before I got to Toronto. So I got on stage at 28. That's not too bad.
Not too bad. No, that's right. But I'm just wondering, how long was that gestation period of, hey, I want to try it, to I tried it?
I guess when I used to watch, there was afternoon talk shows I used to see.
Merv Griffin?
There's Mike Douglas.
Mike Douglas, fantastic.
Do you remember him?
Yeah, guest host, week-long guest host.
Yeah, and they would always have a guy. There was actually a fellow from Vancouver, and I remember him being so funny. He played piano. He's the first comic I ever saw play piano other than Victor Borga, and his name was Pete Barbuti.
Oh, he's not from Vancouver.
I was under the impression he was. Is he not from here?
I think he's American, but he's played here a lot, yeah.
Oh, maybe they had said just in from Vancouver.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. You used to have jokes about the transit system here. And so that's why I thought he was from.
Interesting. I'll look into that. I didn't know it. I know he played the Musicians Union Christmas party a couple of years ago here in town.
Is that right?
Yeah, I'll look that up. But Pete Barbuti, funny guy.
Funny guy. And guys from David Brenner to Tom Dreesen to names that I don't know if you're even aware of.
Tell me. If you remember him, I might.
Did you know Tom Dreesen?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I think he did Carson like 50 times. He did a lot of times.
You know, one guy, Brent Butt, was his hero watching Carson was Kelly Monteith.
Kelly Monteith? I'd have to see it, see the fella to know. But this is your intro to comedy. I didn't know there was like rough gigs. Obviously, they call you up, you put on a suit jacket, you sit on a really comfy swivel chair and talk to somebody way more famous. And in the interim, you're getting all these people to just laugh their heads off. I mean, what could be a better... I mean, it almost seemed too good to be true. What about that? Almost. So that was the drive. That was the whole thing. Myself and a friend each wanted to do it. He ended up running mines. He's like a supervisor for mines up in Timmins.
He never got into it?
No. He's always been way funnier, too, which is crippling. It's too bad. What is your problem? You wouldn't want to jump on this... Anyway, it wasn't something he ended up following up. I think the initial fear crept into his heart, and he just said, nah. And plus, you don't want to be embarrassed. Eh?
Yeah, so when you went up your first time, there's two different ways of going about it. I imagine one is telling all your friends and family come out and support me, or if I were to ever do it, and I never would, but I wouldn't tell a soul.
Well, that was me on the latter, definitely. That tends to be a very Italian thing. I mean, this is not a slag on my many buddies, but geez, there's a certain, oh, come on, you come and support me. Like, you're going to support me and start the giggles, and when I get off, that's when you stand. And it's just so delusional. But no, I had the sense, and once again, we discussed insecurity, to have no one around. Yeah. And when I was on stage, I said, I'm originally from, is there anyone from Timmins? And this huge table of drunks, all started hollering and screaming. All of a sudden, I had friends in the crowd I didn't know about. And that's what threw me off. That's why I went blank and everything. The rails. There I was dealing with rail again, because the wheels had come off. So yeah, took a year to build up the nerve to go back.
Really?
Yes.
And every day in your head you were replaying it.
No, certain memories. And you find this out if you drink too much. Is that certain memories eventually you're able to flush them and they never come back.
Oh, that's good.
The key to survival.
There's a plus side. Could you be happy going back to working a Joe job?
You know what I found, and this is sad, is if I'm on a vacation for more than about 2 weeks, I start to maybe flip through the local paper, see if there's any kind of comedy show going on. Just to do 5, eh? Just to do 5. So it's got its hooks in me pretty deep. I could really enjoy certain types of work, outdoor work and horsing around, which I'll do on my own out in the yard anyhow for fun. So I got no gripes with it.
Well, you got to get up on time, though.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, eventually you get into that pattern.
Sure enough.
Yeah, I worked night shift for 2 years at a bush camp out in the middle of nowhere. You fly in for 4 months and you stay, and then you go home for a couple of weeks and you come back. But after a while, having to get up at midnight was very easy. Starting my midnight shift, get up around 10:30, and it's very strange suddenly changing your life around like that. But after a while, you're in the pattern. Sure. 4 months in, I mean, that's the only way to live. Just getting your head wrapped around the idea of the work schedule, it's a natural thing. I mean, you got to have some kind of ethic come down to working. Mm-hmm. Eventually, my dad was the best. What a great role model. Because he says, if you're the hardest working guy on site, likelihood is you always have work. You'll always have a job. And this was his version of being a good family guy. And he was.
What did he do?
Well, there's another guy. You can name anything. Starting out working with cars as a mechanic. And he got his plumber. He's just worked as like the best guy. If you own a house, he'd be the best guy you could know. He can read blueprints. He can do steam fitting, electrical plumbing. He's now a building inspector, since retired. But he's the guy that when you're finished your job, he comes by and checks to see if it's good enough.
Yeah, and takes the under-the-table pay.
Of course, I would think that'd be part of it.
Was he pleased that you going into show business?
He didn't voice his displeasure.
That's good.
No, he said it was great, and he was a little bit envious. He always, because he's very entertaining guy.
Oh, yeah.
He's done a lot. He's good to speak at a wedding. And, of his age group, sometimes he's had to do eulogies and whatnot. And he can provide great comic relief in the midst of, looking back at somebody's life. He can come up with a killer line. Mm. Oh, man, when he did my grandpa's funeral. I mean, I'd never laugh so hard. Especially when you're in a church and you're not supposed to. Right. Oh, I was weeping. It was so... And, Grandpa had a hell of a kick at the... considering how he lived. It was amazing he got... well into his 80s. So, Dad's funny. Dad's hilarious.
And you have siblings?
I have a sister. Still up in Timmins. I see all the time.
She funny?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole family.
Oh, yeah. And all more so than I. And my mom is from England, so she has somewhat of the British sense of humor, which is much more subtle.
This is interesting. I mean, Mike Myers, I've heard that all his brothers apparently were funnier than he was. He's the one who goes on to be a comedian. Now, I think that might just be a little self-deprecating, as you are, saying that they were funnier than you. But is there anything to that where it's like you're just in that environment and you're trying to keep up? I mean, I think Brent Butt came from a big family of funny guys,
huge.
too.
Yeah. And I met his brother, Lloyd, who lost 3 fingers on each hand up in the oil rigs with a chain wrapped around a little tight and snapped them all off, and he'll still come up behind people and put his 2 index fingers over their eyes and say, "Guess who?" I mean, that's your basic gut crunching funny to me. But Brent's got a world of these huge brothers. I think maybe humor plus. Imagine Brent being the little guy. To me, he seems like a pretty big man, But that was his way of survival.
Talking about the work ethic, do you think that's a failing of some younger comics who maybe flash out or they don't, don't have work forever, as your dad would say? Is the work ethic? I mean, they may have the natural funny, but they don't put in the time.
There are those comics I have seen that I haven't seen in 8 years, and I go back and they're still doing 5 or 7 minutes on open mic night, and it's still the same 5 or 7, and that shocks me. I mean, if you're doing it, the biggest single wash of satisfaction you'll ever have is trying a new thing and finding out it works. Mm-hmm. Okay, if it doesn't work, at least, you can hold your head up and give it a try. Maybe you can polish it, or maybe you can just leave it in the garbage. But either way, at least you tried. I mean, that's a rare case. But literally, 8, 10 years, and the guy's still doing 7, and it's that same 7. You know what's coming.
And you said when you're you like to look in the paper and see if there's a comedy room. So you still go out to the rooms occasionally and do 5 or 7 minutes and try new stuff?
Well, when I can. I do, yeah. There's a lot of them that have leapt out of the woodwork in Toronto. Mm-hmm. There's Spirits and an Eaton House, and there's all peripheral rooms that maybe they just go for one night a month and stuff. So I'm known enough that I can sort of wander in and come on, we'll get you to do a set. Mm-hmm. That's really nice. That's nice to be able to
and take the spot of some young up and comer. Is that how you workshop your new material, or do you do it in the theater tour as well? Just throw in a line here and there and try to build on it.
Well, this is okay. Let's say, where am I starting? Kamloops in 2 days. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, tomorrow I'm going to be investigating. I can't try it out in some scungy, greasy draft bar in Toronto before I do it. Right. There's times where the theater is the only place I get to try it out for the first time. But people are usually pretty forgiving in that instant, You don't want to close with it.
Yeah.
You want to bookend it with a couple of things that usually work.
Right.
Okay, so there's your survival technique right there.
Yeah, and also in the theater, people are focused. They're there to see you. They've paid some good money to see you, and they're going to pay attention and be with you. And if it, be supportive, I guess.
Yes.
Whereas in a club, next.
Well, there's a lot of guys I know that once they do a theater or two, they go, the clubs are terrible. I mean, I worked an outside circuit that was much worse than the clubs. And I would look forward sometimes 6, 8 months coming to work that club. There was one in Montreal I could work. Mm-hmm. And I would look forward to that for so long, and it would be fantastic. You would just get there. They'd all paid at the door. They were sitting all quiet. I mean, okay, once in a while you hear somebody making margaritas or whatever that drink is that goes... There's not always a wall between that and the room. And occasionally there's this and that with a heckler, but very rare. And if you can get those guys on your side, it's great practice for working a theater. It's the best practice there is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's an addendum to that. Calgary was my only night off on the cross-country tour with Rick Mercer. So we had a night off. We got there early in the day, and he had the night off. So 5 of us went to the amateur night at Yuck Yucks on the Blackfoot. Yeah. On our night off, we'd been crossing the country. We'd done already 20 dates in a row. And we got nothing to do. we do a comedy show. So we went out and did it for free.
And the amateurs are going, we got to follow this.
You know who it was? It was Steve Patterson.
Oh.
All the amateurs had finished. And then the MC brought on us in order. So we had callbacks to the previous guy's act. It was so slick by that point. And there's Steve Patterson in the back. Oh, geez, what about that, huh? Wow. I mean, he pulled it off magnificently.
Yeah.
He was basically, getting some empathy from the crowd. Saying, I really thought it was just going to be amateurs tonight, and look what happened. So, no, he did it great. He did a really good job. And he's got a peachy radio gig with
on the Debaters.
Yeah, he does a stunning job.
Really good job. Have you done the Debaters too?
Yes. I was supposed to argue with John Wing, and something fell through. I was supposed to do a debate about the proper use of English with John. And I would, of course, be the naysayer on that one. And I was looking forward to it. And I don't know, somebody dropped the ball. It never happened.
But you have done one other?
I've done 2 of them now. One was with Pat Thornton. He's this young fella. Got the most... hilarious beer gut on him. Like, he's a huge guy.
A hilarious beer gut.
You know, I mean, to me, the ultimate is Randy on the Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah.
That is funny gut. That's where laughs happen. And, this other guy, Pat Thorne. Anyway, brilliant and funny fella. The other one was with Mike Wilmot, my old buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And who won?
Well, I luckily enough, I have won them both.
Oh, undefeated.
Undefeated? But, 2 isn't a pattern.
We're talking with Derek Edwards. Derek is a hilarious guy, and it's a chance now. We're going to listen to a clip of Mr. Edwards. So here he is, Derek Edwards, somewhere. Where was this recorded, Derek?
I have no idea what the clip is. In Canada?
You know, I've been thinking about getting a gun, though. I don't want to rob a bank. I wouldn't mind getting some service, though. Just wouldn't that be great when you're in that, like, 12 o'clock, 12:30 lineup just to fire off a round? All right, where's the manager? Is that you? Is that you? Okay. On the ground. Okay, now, listen, I got a question. Where's all the friggin' tellers? Huh? You've got 7 spots, there's only 2 chicks. Where's the rest of the time? Well, they're at lunch. You see? That's why you're an idiot. You know what? It's everybody's lunch. A lot of these people had to skip lunch to do their banking. You don't go to a restaurant, oh, the service is going to be a bit slow. All the cooks are on lunch. I don't like how miserable media is. It makes you miserable. All the news is so negative, isn't it? There's nothing. It's just there to just make you sad. Even the financial stuff will start off something like, well, the NASDAQ is down. What? I don't even know what that is. I'm a little upset. Down? That doesn't sound good. Jesus, it's probably going to rain, too.
Thanks, Derek. That was hilarious. We're on location. We're back in North Vancouver. Derek Edwards' hotel room here, and Derek will be at Centennial Theatre on Friday. So you want to get out and catch him. You know, this is called When the what is it?
Other Shoe Drops.
The Other Shoe Drops.
Yes.
This is a one-man show as opposed to a stand-up show, or is it all the same?
Well, well, some guys do like a show, but they'll have a local opener come up and do 20 or thereabouts. Mm-hmm. But then they have like sometimes an intermission or whatever. But I'm just kind of trying to get momentum going. So once I'm up, that's it. We just roll right through until the end. And then kabang, and thanks for coming.
Now, you were here through town 2007, a couple of years ago. What was the name of that tour? Oh,
you know what it was? Sleepless in Gogama.
Gogama.
It was the stupidest title. Nobody ever heard of Gogama. Nobody, let alone knew how to pronounce it. But the weird thing was, while I was still doing that, I had a chunk of time off to do the Montreal Comedy Festival. And this runner comes to the MC. Of course, this is televised, this little chunk.
Yeah.
I didn't know that my tour manager had already organized my intro. I thought I'd be writing down please welcome from Timmins kind of thing. But instead it was going to be, please welcome, he's touring a one-man show called Sleepless in Gogama across the, like, kind of tacky even. And the guy introduced me was John Cleese. So he sends a runner over to come over. So how do you pronounce this here? Is it Gogama or Goo? Oh, yeah, that's
so
Gogama.
It doesn't matter how you pronounce it.
John Cleese said the word Gogama, which is a town of 300, I believe, if they still got that many, with the dirt roads way north of Sudbury on the way to Timmins. And John Cleese said the word. So I think I'm getting him a lot of credence.
So is this different material? People
It's
come out.
different material, but there's still overlap.
Sure.
I mean, there's a hell of a lot of people didn't see me last time. I hate to just dump all the good stuff.
That's right.
So I've dragged in some new stuff.
And plus, people want to hear the hits too, right? I'm sure
the
you're
hits,
fine.
the hits.
Well, yeah. Like, don't you have people come up to you? Why didn't you do this one?
You know what?
This.
Sometimes that does happen.
Yeah.
It's shocking because it's not quite like a song.
Right.
You know what I mean? Kind of once you know how it ends, I would think that would detract from the enjoyment thereafter. Whereas The Summer Wind by Frank, I mean, I could hear that over and over. And even though I know,
couldn't?
because it ends, The Summer Wind. I know how it ends, and I still love it. So, but jokes I always thought were different. I've had requests for this camping joke that I started out doing how many years ago.
Really?
And but I'll tour around with whatever I got hold of. The idea of a title for it is to throw a thematic backdrop into it to give it some type of perceived continuity, which I've yet to note myself. I don't know. It's all part of the trickery of the one-man show business. Who knew? So the other shoe was me turning 50 and looking back at my life and whatever, and I kind of faking my way through being mature and all this. And I don't know anyone with any wisdom and how I don't know how anything works, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just, come to be comfortable with your own stupidity and lack of ability in the world.
As you get older, do you find that everyone's faking it? Or do you just think that you're alone?
No, the women folk are all mature.
Oh, okay. I mean, the guys.
It's the guys.
Yeah.
And rare is a guy that I know who has a natural sense of responsibility, always takes the high road, all this kind of thing.
That's when you're hanging out with Wilmot.
Well, that's always been a problem in my life. Yeah, that hasn't helped. Other than once in a while he gives me a line that's so funny it's worth knowing him. So I mean, really, I'm not going for a theme. I mean, it's not any benefit to me to have an intellectual background to something as stupid as a comedy show. I just going for belly laughs. The more the better. Yeah.
And that's not stupid.
Well, that's just what the game
Especially-
is. That's what the game is. You're right.
Yeah.
That's how it should work.
Hey, come on. In these economic times, people need a laugh.
I want one day this year to go by where I don't hear that phrase. In this economic times. Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry I brought it up.
No.
You talk about your insecurity off the top here. I imagine it's a great feeling when you're on stage and the audience is with you and you're killing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and does it stay with you, or as soon as you get off stage, do you start to have the insecurity again? Like, how long does that last?
Well, there's a nice glow to it. And I meet people after the show. I meet folks, sometimes they'll come by and want a little picture with their little phone or something. It's, sure, man, my pleasure. Here's the beautiful thing about how you can be self-deluded in comedy, is after the show, if people had a good time, they're just as likely to come up and tell you. But if they didn't, they just leave. So as far as you know, everybody had a good time. So you're in a kind of a bubble of ignorance that isn't necessarily your doing. So there's that. But there's a nice buzz, a pleasant residual adrenaline rush from a fun show. That's not easily to be dismissed, and that's what it's about. The initial response, if people recognize you, is very nice too. But if at the end they've had such a good time and they get all rowdy, it's hard to top that.
Every comic has had their held gigs, I imagine. It's been a while since you've had them. You reach a certain level where you're doing the theater tours now. There's nothing really horrific happening, is there?
There's something inherently wrong with Lloydminster. Okay? I don't know if you know where that is. It's right on the border of, I think, Alberta, Saskatchewan. So I think there's an identity problem. I'm not sure that they're aware of who they are or who they're supposed to represent. But there's a confusion and a gap between when I say a joke and when they somehow grasp it.
So your timing gets thrown off. Is that what you said?
It really does. And for the points where they're just blank stares, and this is in the theater world, the blank stare points, does this go right across the country, this interview?
Theoretically. It's online.
I mean, this time I was more prepared, because when there was no response at all to something that's been working every night after night, so when there was nothing, I was completely prepared to keep rolling along, keep talking until something did amuse them. And so, as far as they know, that's how I always do it. There's never a little pause there so I can think of the next thing I have to say, because I was so ready for them. They're a very challenging group, but they are much better this time, as I was more prepared. Which, okay, it all comes down to the performer every time. That wasn't a bad town. It was just me not having my chops down well enough to suit the good people of Lloydminster.
And to react to whatever's thrown your way, is that what you're saying? It's the personal responsibility of the performer.
Well, yeah, you got to come in there with the best game you can. Always, the hardest thing was the St. John's, Newfoundland. I mean, they're so funny and clever. They're just, I mean, what's what they do all the time? I mean, it's not as though everybody's working. I mean, they amuse themselves at kitchen parties, telling great jokes and cracking wise and cutting each other apart. God, that's a tough room to play because they're so good at comedy.
They are. Yeah, I think Brent talks about that, where people are heckling lines and he's getting a pen. Oh, I got to write that one down.
Yeah.
Tag. They're throwing tags after.
Totally correct.
Yeah.
And there was always a line, I remember hearing it so often from MCs. When crowds were still being trained, in a way, that sounds rude, but I mean, they didn't know about comedy so much when it was starting out, and some rooms where they just sat there, what am I supposed to do? And the MC would say, well, I don't know if you've ever worked together as a crowd before, but here's you listen, you find something amusing, and just be yourself. But in England, when I played there, you can never use that line. I don't know if you've ever worked together as a crowd, because they can leap into a song that everyone knows the words to because they've all been to these soccer games. And if they don't like you, they have some song they usually sing to the other team. They've worked as a crowd together, and that's truly an intimidating idea.
So how do you combat that?
Just keep talking. Don't give them a chance. Just keep rolling. First, you got to learn the lingo, the words that don't mean the same here as they mean there, and all that kind of thing. But I got this festival coming up in Kilkenny in 4 weeks or so.
Oh,
that I'm, I'm scared and psyched out about already. But fingers crossed. It's not. It doesn't lay on me anyway. There's some way bigger hitters down there from the States and whatnot. So I'm just going to be this blip, this tiny little blip on the horizon. If it goes well, I win. If it doesn't, I don't really lose.
You're so natural on stage, and I was wondering if you've been through any major stylistic changes or an evolution since you started. Were you always that persona, that person on stage from the beginning?
Well, I'm trying to be more accessible, Okay, I was trying to just to kind of understand that I'm talking and not be so involved in what I'm saying that I can still react to what's going on out there. So I've tried to be less doing with rote memory and whatnot, and try and have that all so much part of my subconscious I can just, or with my conscious, that my subconscious can just float around. And if there's something going on out there, that I can address it without totally buggering up all the rest of the things I got to say. So that's changed. And I'm a little bit less pumping up the crowd. I'm less of my own cheerleader out there. I'm just like, you like it or you don't, I'm not going to, to crank it up for you. So that's changed. And probably, I'm hoping for the better.
So you're still learning?
Yeah.
Is it from just self-reflection or from watching others and going, I see what they did there? Like, how are you still learning?
No, you know what it was? Somebody taped one of my shows, and I listened to it. I went, because I never had the guts to, well, I don't know, it's all guts. It's just sometimes you just don't want to hear that stuff. You've been doing it, and, it's just... God, I don't want to hear myself talk. Nobody wants to hear themselves talk. But I heard a tape that Terry McRae, there's a hard-working, good man having your team. He made this tape and he gave it to me. I listened to it in the car. It's like, oh, look what I did there. That was, I learned a lot there.
But he probably thought it was fantastic.
He's a very positive guy. He's very much, he
said, you're probably your biggest critic, right? I mean, the crowd probably thought it was great.
I'm married, eh? So what's the chance I'm going to be able to be my biggest critic? But at least second biggest. Yeah.
Point taken, yeah.
Yeah, so there's that. But no, she's my gal, by the way. She doesn't hack on with the chuckles and the comedy. No. I used to bounce jokes off her, but sometimes she would just give me that stare, that Lloyd Mister stare, and then I'd try it out and it would kill. I couldn't trust her. She wasn't, perfect, turns out. Shocked I was. You could imagine I had to sit down for a moment.
So has there been a moment in your career where you sort of go, I mean, I know you're still learning, but where you go, aha, I get it. I will now be like this.
No, it's one joke at a time. I mean, maybe there was a time you think of the guys with this huge images. Do you ever listen to Sam Kinison in his day?
Yeah.
I mean, he just started this yelling guy at one point, and it just ripped the roof off this club he was doing down the States. And he sat after the show, and I read it. He says, "Oh my God, I'm going to have to be the screaming guy from now on." I mean, it kind of depressed him, but I thought the delivery and the material was brilliant.
Yeah.
So I mean, he should have been happier than he was. But geez, I've never had one of those. I mean, maybe I can figure out how this joke will work a little better.
Right.
But having an overall huge epiphany, I'm way down on that.
It's the persona we see on stage is essentially what you get off stage, right? Or are there big misconceptions about who you are from the people just seeing your stage work?
You know what? There's a formula to that. It's basically most guys I know, and these are guys that are journeymen. Them on stage is just like them you would sit around and have coffee with times 3.
Right.
You know, it's the exact same guy. He's just all over the top, and it's a natural thing to jump ahead like that because you're so revved with adrenaline. So that's how, I suppose I'm a little bit like that. I just get up there, and I try not for it to be a dramatic change. Like emo. You know emo?
Yeah.
I mean, there's something seriously contrived about that. Jeez, I mean, no offense to these guys, but that was over the top grating for me.
So you just want to be yourself.
I figure the closer I can do to that, the better it's going to work. It's a more natural progression.
Yeah. Another thing, you're so likable on stage, and yet you
I know
will.
what you hear.
What?
Nothing.
And, you will go off on a rant about something bugging you. Have you ever crossed the line? Like you still maintain your likability even in those situations. Have you ever crossed the line where you go, oh, maybe I went too far on that one? I got a little too angry.
Yeah, I have a couple times. I remember, I did said all these bad words when I was in the Hamilton Yuck Yucks Club. It's like this landmark place. It had been around for something like 25 years. They were closing it down. So everybody had some beverages, and I had this massive show with 20-something guys on the show. All the guys that could make. And I got so revved up about this joke I'd been doing. And it was something that really did anger me. It was like, one of life's little injustices. And I just got hosed and boned every which way. And I started getting really into it. I thought it would work better. But he just kind of disturbed people. Ooh, this guy should... a therapist, possibly?
Yeah, he's off.
Yeah. So that maybe you can take it... not everybody can pull off a Kinnison delivery.
Right.
What I'm saying, yeah. So, I kind of, like I'm a fairly relaxed person, so the best thing for me is just to kind of, more or less, be that guy. But I can still get mad once in a while. Everybody gets mad once in a while.
Yeah.
But it's not a good closer for me.
Now, I know you got a couple teenagers, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, they're still teenagers. People would come up to me after my dad died and said, oh, your dad was really funny. And I was like, really? I didn't see that at all. Now, you talk about how your dad is funny, right?
Yeah.
Do your kids think you're funny, or are they just sort of like, come on?
Oh, no. And I mean, it must be hard. I mean, I learned that about my own dad when I was grown. I was already in my 20s before I realized.
Right.
But them, and then they see me on TV, and, oh, man, not this again? They're just, naturally, they're not that impressed. And bless their hearts. I mean, that's the tack to take. That's the only way to behave in this situation. No, they have their own likes, dislikes, favorite comics and whatnot.
Well, let's turn it on them. Are they funny?
Oh, geez, man. Yes. Well, they make me laugh. But that's every parent's going to say.
Sure.
But the youngest guy, Luke, he was committed to it when he was very young.
Committed to
getting the laugh.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever it took. This is where, like my buddy Duncan, I didn't mention, but he's the guy in the mine. You work in the mines now. He'd use a person as a prop to get the joke going. And he didn't care about their feelings. Now, my guy Luke was like 3 in a bank lineup, and the older guy, Sam, he would invite his friends over to you got to see my funny brother. It's like little brother. There's 4 years different. So Luke's at the bank. Sam and his friends are there in line at the bank with their mom, and Luke sees he's got a crowd, so he rolls over on his back and just hauls down his underwear, just with the hiney pointing at him, and that's it. He had that crowd on the palm of his head. That's it. They were busted up.
And no turning back.
And really, no, you're committed. That's it. So, I think he just likes getting the occasional laugh. They've all become, a little bit more quieter and a little, as you get, sometimes your teenage years, you still haven't quite got your own idea what you are, who you are. So they're a little more insecure now. But back in the day, they're little, they'd be killing it. Just so fun.
So would you encourage them, your younger one particularly, if he wanted to go into stand-up? Yeah, go for it. Or would you say, no, become a forklift walker?
You know what? I tell them, get a job that pays some money and that can get you by. I don't want you starving on account of, you're stuck opening. Opening pays nothing, So that's hard to put food on the table. Opening. I can still wonder about that guy, 10 years with the same 7. I imagine he's got probably a job. But, yeah, I would prefer that they get something going that they can go back to.
Right.
They don't have to be dentists and whatever. They don't have to be professional guys. But as long as they're good to me and the people they care about, I'm happy whatever they do. Find something pays the bills, and then horse around with comedy.
You're a good dad. Were you a funny kid too? Were you in any kind of, maybe not class clown way, but amongst your friends, were you the guy that was making everyone laugh?
There was I had a group of buddies used to hang with. Started with the street hockey in Timmins, just playing every night street hockey all winter, and then sort of hanging around. And then eventually one of them got a place because his dad decided to cut his hair with one. Those round things? There's this round thing, kind of looked like something you'd tune a piano harmonica, one of those, the round harp. Anyway, you could cut people's hair with these horrible fake scissors. Man, he's like 18. He got his own place because his old man grabbed him by the hair, was going to cut it. No, you're not. Well, then you're out of the house. And that's it. We had a place to party. Because Jerry had to get his own house. So we hung out there all the time. With the euchre, listening to Monty Python, having pints, and, just coming up through that turbulent youth everybody goes through.
Right.
And everybody was funny. I mean, it was always, making the other guy feel his absolute worst you could. I'm sure it's not a special youth. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to it. But I'm sure also that still has repercussions on why I'm still an immature idiot to this day. Because all my friends, that's my roots. Why leave them behind, I say.
You can't help it. That's just who you are.
Absolutely. It's who you are.
You're talking about Bobcat Goldthwait, and coincidentally this morning I heard him on an internet comedy station. I haven't heard a lot of Bobcat Goldthwait, but he was doing a routine, and it made me think that a lot of comedians, their acts are based on sort of a generally accepted ignorance, where if you know the actual fact of what you're talking about, there's no joke there anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, have you ever got to that point where you don't want to know more information about a particular subject that you're talking about because that would take away from your take on it, your position?
Right, yeah.
Or would you stop doing that bit, or would you just pretend that you didn't know it? You know what I'm trying to say?
So I think there's a kind of a boy meets world confuses man, kind of, I don't get this. Why does this happen when this happens?
Well, I'll tell you the bit.
Okay.
This morning, Bobcat Goldthwait was talking about his pubic hair, and he couldn't understand why it stopped growing, like it should be out to, wherever. There is a scientific reason for that. Or your arm hair, right? It stops growing, or it keeps replacing itself. That's it. That's just an example of, if he knew that, would he continue to do that joke? Because as a listener, I'm sitting there going, well, no, it doesn't do that. You know what I'm trying to say? I'm not expressing myself well. I just heard this morning.
Yeah, okay. So you're one, okay, so if he was a little bit more well-read on the subject, his innocent confusion about it would seem weathered, would seem a little less believable.
Maybe,
yes.
Perhaps.
Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, maybe that's why some of the best, there's guys I know that, and I picture Norm in the same bucket of guys, is they have always taken no interest in what goes on. Someone else does the decision-making in their world. And for Norm, it used to be his wife. I had always heard. Like, he couldn't, balance a book. He couldn't do any banking. He couldn't do anything. And I think Wilmot, another immature fool, can't even drive a car. Someone has to drive for him. So maintaining that little bubble of ignorance, maybe that's integral to the whole comedy thing. And here I am on tour pulling the shades up on that. Maybe I've made a horrible mistake in judgment on this one. But you bring up a valid point. It's going to cause me to reflect on my own own show now. For God's sakes, am I just milking this because I'm pretending I'm stupid?
Maybe there'll be no show on Friday at the Centennial Theater.
At 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, yes, thanks. Hey, you told me once years ago that American comics don't take the joke right to the end, and reading back the transcript, as I was the other day, I realized I didn't ask you why that is. Why you think they don't, if you still believe it, and can you explain what you mean by that to our listeners?
Well, there's a different expectation in American crowds, I think. Because once you've gotten the joke out, they've laughed and applauded, and then if you have a tagline as well, that's it. That's over the top. Okay. Woo! that is done. But the Canuck audience is always more hard to impress. Are waiting for okay, we got anything else? We're just on a roll. The topic's still fresh. Let's keep it going. I think it's there. Maybe a bit of a victim of the expectations of the crowd. But say Louis C.K. is brilliant stand-up in America. I mean, he gets crowds out that want to hear that carefully written stuff. He's, his stuff about his daughter asking why. Did you ever hear that?
Yes.
How long does that go on? I mean, that's just go long beyond when any, a Canadian comic has ever written that many taglines. Dom Herrera, another guy, he'll get on a topic and ride it like a trained friggin' white horse. It just keeps going and going. So I don't want it. That sound a bit pompous that I'd said that about all American comics.
So in general,
I'm saying you're less, the guys that are less inclined to follow the laugh and more go for the big kapow, and some of these the guys that come off as like redneck comics and stuff. It's just there's one joke and that's it. Now I'm going to start another premise and there'll be one joke and all the redneck fans can laugh and go, oh, there'll probably be another joke coming in a couple minutes. You just watch, honey. That makes it easy.
You don't play the stage, do you?
I've played.
I know you have.
My best crowds I had down there were from Vegas. Doesn't that sound weird?
Well, maybe it's because they're a worldly crowd, perhaps.
Possibly. And it's not all from one area. There's probably nobody from Utah in there, first of all. There's going to be a cross-section from all over the states. They must have a couple shekels in the bank. They made some good decisions in their life in order to be able to make the big bad decision to go to Vegas in the first place. They were quite open-minded to wherever you wanted to go. Okay, let's go there.
Derek, we are almost out of time.
I can't believe it. Yeah, an hour. This has been an hour.
Yeah, can you believe it?
Yeah, that's frightening how quick that went by.
One question I wanted to ask is you make great hay out of the fact that you're from Timmins, as is Shania Twain. How many degrees of separation are you from Ms. Twain?
You know what? Here, none. She was in this hotel. You'll see her picture beside the elevator.
Here?
Yeah.
Really?
On 2003, between December 7th and 9th. She was in this very hotel. And you'll see her picture on the elevator to prove it. On the outside, you can check it out. So now, this is as close as I've ever been to her.
So you don't know anyone who knows her or went to school with her?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so how many
Al
degrees?
Clausey from Ottawa. He's a lawyer guy now. But he went to school with her, and he set me up to the fact she was coming to the high school reunion a few years back. And she went and danced and kicked her shoes off and just hopped around the floor. No makeup person. Her hair was askew. I kid you not. And she had zero pretense, just contractually obligated to have a bodyguard sort of looming against the wall.
Sure.
There was no reason for it, but I guess she had to. But she went out for pizza. She talked to everybody. She was just like this sweetheart. Absolutely. And I was gigging. I couldn't go.
You weren't the same class.
No.
Yeah,
She'd be younger than myself,
Wow.
But still, she's doing pretty good. And I don't feel I owe her any advice or whatever. She's done well.
Is she familiar with your work?
You know what? Somebody said she'd heard of me. Somebody that went to the reunion said, she doesn't know you, but she's heard of you. And I was overwhelmed. So that shows, I think, our various places in the firmament right there.
All right, Derek, thanks so much for dropping by your hotel room and talking with me.
Hey, it's my pleasure. And thanks again for taking time.
Thank you. Next week, our guests, we're going to have a record-setting number of guests in studio. It's the Urban Improv Troupe, all of them. I think there might be like 8 or 9, or at least 3. So tune in again next week, same time, same channel. Thanks. And Derek Edwards' show. What's the name of it again, Derek?
The Other Shoe Drop.
The Other Shoe drops Friday, April 24th, Centennial Theater in North Van, and Saturday, May 2nd at the Richmond Gateway Theater. Thanks. Good night.
Good night.